Thanks, Chair. If I can just start by drawing attention to my register of interests, which will show that I've received hospitality both from the Premier League and the Jockey Club in the context of these questions. In July 2025, Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley stated that it costs the police £70 million a year to police football matches across the UK. When I did visit Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier this year, I observed, traffic management measures by the police a mile down Tottenham High Street, as well as within the stadium itself. In that context, really to Annie, but to either of you who might be able to bring anything to this, can you update the committee on the current status of discussions about special police service costs?
Do you want to add?
No, I'll go first on that. I think the position of the SGSA is that clearly it promotes safe and secure events. In some cases, it will be private security and stewarding together with the club only. In some cases, it will involve police under special policing services. That's a decision that is made throughout the statements of intent based upon the risk of the event and the likelihood of the need for policing to help to make that safe, secure environment, both within the stadium and in that outer area, which could include transport interchanges, city centres or whatever. But the SGSA has got no role in what the level of cost should be for that and deliberately keeps outside of that, instead promoting that our position is that we need to keep promoting that safe and secure environment. So that's a private discussion that's happening with football governing bodies and the police themselves.
Thank you. Annie?
And I'm sure you're aware of the Home Office work being done at the moment in terms of SPS and the consultation that's going through on charging on private land. So we are part of that consultation process. So we've got some insight into it. So obviously at the moment it's very much focused towards football, but as we know, what happens for football probably is going to then go on to major events. So we do see a bit of a slippery slope with this piece in terms of charging. Just to give an idea, so the cost of police for an event is probably about 3 or 4 times the cost of stewards or security staff. So there is a finite budget with this stuff, and I think that needs to be considered. There is, the role of policing is crime and disorder, and we can't change that, but the chargeable footprint when it goes outside of a fenced or ticketed area suddenly becomes within the Zone X or kind of the grey space area that I know we're going to come to talk about. So, for me, there's that kind of one concern I think we have is about the police as a regulator, essentially, or the police as a body, then dictating terms to events, and so they become kind of a supplier as well as they have a legislative responsibility, and then they almost become a supplier to the event that they're paying. So, there's a really difficult balance between going, what's the core role of policing, what's the core function of policing in terms of public safety, and I think most times with SPS we get there eventually, so there'll be some lively debates and discussions with police about what SPS is needed for an event, and then and I single out Sussex Police here because I work with them very frequently about how open they are to those discussions and how we're able to have good conversations with them as stakeholders in that piece. But this is based on good, sensible decision-making between an event organiser and police. So, a change to that, we need to think really carefully about what a change to the chargeable footprint might look like, both for football and for events. So, it's a difficult area because it's under consultation at the moment, and there's, again, a gamut of reasons why, I can see that the police purse strings are tight, but also that, as events, we do bring billions into the economy, and, as part of that, part of that taxation goes towards policing, so we're already paying a substantial amount through, generation of revenue for events, and that also needs to be considered as well in that piece.
Yeah, that's totally valid. I might just sort of push back gently with the point that my residents' council tax also pays for the policing. So there's the other side of that coin. You answered one of my other questions about the potential for this to move from football and on to other events. So if I can just go to my last point then. I mentioned that I've visited Cheltenham Racecourse too. So one of the, probably if not the largest event in Gloucestershire is Cheltenham Festival, which is obviously the horse racing. Whilst the Metropolitan Police budget may be here, Gloucestershire Constabulary's budget is somewhere down here comparatively. Do you have any concerns about the inconsistency of charges across the country in that context?
What do you want me to?
Well, I would go back to the point I made on the original question that, you know, we've got no influence or no involvement in this. We're primarily looking at what that level of safety would be to make sure that it's set at that correct level.
I mean, I think for me it's about, you know, prices differ greatly between police forces and you know, we don't see a consistency. There is, you know, there is some guidance around that for police within that piece. So you know, there already is some guidance within that piece, but it's not necessarily the cost, but it's how that cost is applied. So, you know, how the risk assessment breaks down is also incredibly important. So what can cost £0 in one area can cost tens of thousands in another, and you know, that for me strikes a problem for event organisers in terms of so I think we have to understand both views here. I think it's important to understand that the police are under pressure, and that we're not going to get away from that fact, but that you know, we also don't want to price out. We want to support culture, and so within that, we need to make sure that we're not pricing out the work that we're doing, and you know, and also if you know, if there is only one budget and so much is going on policing, then actually so much less will probably go on security and stewards, which are, you know, a major impact on what we do. So yeah.
Yeah, I welcome that last point about there being a balance ultimately. I mean, I absolutely recognise, as would my residents, the cultural and economic value of Cheltenham Racecourse and the national cultural contribution of Tottenham Hotspur.
I think that's a matter of debate. Sorry, did I say that out loud?
Going down quickly.
Shut it down.
Excuse me. Thank you.